with a little bit of sun trying to come through the clouds. I am going to show you here how I usually dye these wood grains. So the first thing I do is get a really solid, like dark color in the knotwork there, I think that's what you call it. In this case, I'm using a water-based timber brown. It's not a very dark brown, but it is a very nice brown. See, even Shadow agrees with me. Yes. So then I work out from the sides or wherever you want to. But what I do from there is mostly following the grain. And you see I'm not using a very big brush again. It is just to get the dye settled somehow. I try and follow those cut lines so that it kind of indicates the grain as well with different colors. I think for this I can probably use a bit of a larger brush. That one's losing its dye too fast on me. Now with this dye you can always go darker once you've covered the whole thing with a light color. So keep that in mind. Oops, going over the edge, which means I'll have to do the edge dark, very dark, cover my mistakes. And you don't have to put a lot of contrast in between the light and dark. Always think about it as just not being super even. And now I'll have a look at the general picture of what the whole piece looks like, and I see, okay, I do want a bit of more dark in some areas, so I can add that. Okay, and I think that will be a good effect when it's dry and done. I just finished doing the second panel in the same way as I did the first, except this is timber brown and the second panel was done in Java brown. So same thing goes for both. The third panel I'm going to use a different applicator. This is a piece of cotton shirt that is tightly bound around a piece of sponge. So what I do with this I use a different dye. I use an alcohol-based Fiebing's Pro dye. And so with a little dauber, I put just a little bit of dye on the surface of this piece of fabric. Not too much, just on the surface. Now, to dye this, you work very carefully and very lightly, because this piece was done with a modeling spoon that made ridges in the leather. So here, I just lightly rub this over, and so the dye only takes on the ridges and not deeper down. As the dye gets less, I can go a bit harder down on the applicator, and you'll see that what happens is that as the dye hits the top edges of the ridges, it fades out to the bottom of the valleys of those in between, and you get a really nice result that way too. So that's another method of doing it. I'm using this same sponge applicator. Now I haven't added more dye yet. It's still as I did it with the first panel. And I'm doing this with the panel that was created with the hair blade. You see now it makes that pattern really pop there. So there you go. I've never done that before. For the piece with the broken wood, I am going to use both the timber brown and the Java brown water-based dye, just to combine the two. And now I'm very careful, obviously, because there's an edge to the dye, to the wood. And what I do in this case is I really focus also not just on the outside edges here, but also on the actual edge of each of these wooden planks. So I want them to be distinguished from each other. So if I make this one a really dark brown, the edge on the other side might just be lighter. I'll see when I get to that plank. One plank at a time. Okay. So maybe I'll put a bit of Java brown around this edge here. Okay, so as I said, the other plank with the other side is going to be a bit lighter. So I'll make that a bit lighter. And I'm not being super careful with the background because I'm going to dye the background in a darker color. So Right, there's that plank done. Now let me do this one. Slightly darker again. And so it's just a subtle difference between the two planks that touch each other, just so that you can see, hopefully see some sort of a difference there. Okay. And then the one on the end, just going to make that lighter. One of the things here to realize is that while your dye has the leather wet, the leather is going to be darker, so you can't really judge the color or the darkness or the intensity of the color while it is wet. You have to give it time to dry. Right, and I think that will do the job on these wooden planks. I think at least them, if not one of the others too, I am going to do with a highlight stain as well when I'm done, just to really make those cut textures pop. So we'll see about that. Okay.